Hi, this is Steve Addison for the Movements Podcast, the podcast for people who want to multiply disciples and churches everywhere. Well, you're going to hear a short but inspiring update from Don Waybright about what God is doing behind bars in the Texas prison system.
This movement is being given oxygen, air to breathe by the authorities.
Yeah, I mean, it was initiated, this field minister program, which both David and Brandon and Troop and Terry Sully, they all graduated out of that Darrington Bible College, which gave them the status of field minister, kind of like an associate chaplain. And so they were given a job of going to run these chaplain programs under the chaplaincy, guidance of the chaplaincy. So they had that freedom there, that access of movement inside prisons, special security status where they had the access of movement. But instead of training in a lot of these, like, say, traditional evangelism courses and such, like, you know, from some book study, they would just hijack it. And, you know, they'd call it that, you know, whether it's share Jesus without fear or something like that, or even purpose-driven life or something. And they'd start training 4 fields and all the tools from 4 fields. Simple, biblical, reproducing tools.
And so those people, like the wardens, are seeing the fruitfulness, the changed lives.
Yeah, the warden at Cofield, I quote him, and he says, you hear the gospel 24/7 at the prison. The culture has completely changed. My officers are safe. What was once one of the most dangerous prisons in the Texas system, nobody wanted to get transferred there. They wanted to leave as soon as they could. Now inmates are wanting to get transferred there.
So David's role, would all those key guys recognize him as the leader?
Yeah, he's a natural leader. He's always, I mean, he is that apostolic catalytic leader, pioneer leader, visionary.
He's breaking through the barriers and taking others with him.
Yeah, he's bringing together the core missionary task. He's bringing in, he's not playing church. He's bringing in the multiplication of the kingdom of God and multiplying churches. He's raising up apostolic leaders. He's releasing authority. He's the one developing the curriculum, developing the systems, breaking through the barriers, figuring it out. What's it going to take? And he's playing all the politics really well. He's navigating all the stuff with chaplains and all the stuff with wardens and all the security people and the nonprofits. You know, out of that training at Darrington, I'll just go back, retrace that, probably for a year. Definitely for a year. Every month I was going out there systematically training on 4 fields. And then before they got deployed, because I knew they were going to get deployed about May of 2015, I did some intensives, did like 4-day intensive. So Brandon and David got deployed to Cofield. When they got there, they had the field minister status. The warden told them, hey, you've been trained. You go run your program. Do what you want to do. So they got access to the whole prison. They just kind of looked at the walls of Jerusalem, what was taking place. And they knew of only 6 Bible studies going on in the entire prison and through the whole chaplaincy program. They started training both organically and from the center in the chaplain at the chapel. And within 2 years, they had over 300 churches meeting every week in every living area of the prison. I would go there. I got there probably 6 months after they had arrived. I cast vision to about 100 guys that were in this room for No Place Left Cofield. And at the end of that meeting, every single one of those guys was on their knees praying and surrendering to that vision. In the front row was this guy named Steve Hurd. He's a cop killer and in for life. And before that training was over that day, he had led an officer to the Lord.
Wow.
Well, I come back a couple months later thinking I'm going to do something similar. And I walk into the gym and it's doubled. There's like over 200 men. And right in the center of the gym is this podium with a whiteboard. And all of a sudden, all the men are just gathering around this podium. And up on top of that podium stands Steve Hurd, the cop killer. And he draws out the 5 parts, 4 fields, and casts this incredible No Place Left vision in about 6 minutes. And I was like stunned. And then they all break up into groups and start their little learning communities and start, it's like a 12-week training program and all these different little groups. They'd already trained core leaders that they hold the bar really high. They got oral and written exams. If you don't fulfill the goals, they make you go out right away and go share the gospel with like half a dozen guys. But anyway, that 200 guys just spread out into all these different groups with these leaders and all got whiteboards and they're all just putting this stuff together and then living it out in the prison. Like I said, within 2 years, they had over 300 churches. And I'd show up there. What their training was, their level 1 training. They do it by levels. They created their own curriculum on the 5 levels of multiplication leadership. They got level 1, level 2, and level 3. The level 1 is really commands of Christ. And they would have the baptism lesson about week 5 or 6. And I'd show up on that baptism lesson when they're going to baptize guys. They have like 50 guys they're going to baptize. And they got a portable baptismal out there in this gym. And these guys are like, they're just, I shared this story with you before. There's one dude covered head to toe with prison tattoos, Aryan Nation guy. Just scary looking dude, just a visible representation of racism and hatred.
Yeah.
It's baptized by the black brother that led him to Jesus and comes up out of that water and they're just embracing each other. And I'm just like crying, man. It's like the ministry of reconciliation right there before my eyes. And then, there's other guys, Mexican mafia guys that know they will get beat out of their gangs for getting baptized. And they call it Black Guys for Jesus. And there's Muslims former Muslims getting baptized, and which is nothing but another prison gang. Yeah. And but anyway, they follow that with their first communion, and they're doing this. They're the ones doing this, and then the ones that want to keep going to go to level 2, and they all got to plant churches, and then they get to church multiplication level 3, and they all have to multiply churches and release authority, but they put this together inside the prison. It's both coming from the center in this chapel as a formal training program, but also going out organically and multiplying through, just relational kind of spiral training, coaching and mauling right there on the lines and day rooms and such. Steve Hurd, he's fascinating dude. We know he's in for life, right? He's a cop killer. We want him to get in that Darrington program and go through that 4 years of that Bible college so he gets that field minister status. Then we know we got this apostle, this high-powered apostle that we can deploy all over the prison. So we finally get him in there, and the day he arrives at Darrington, he's diagnosed with lung cancer.
Wow.
But man, the dude just perseveres, and he starts. We can never get in Darrington outside of solitary confinement we're having great challenges getting movement out in the general population. But when Steve Hurd shows up, we're breaking through the barriers, man. He just gets in there, starts a training program. I'll go there and watch him. He sets the bar so high, these guys just pay complete attention to him. And I asked him, I said, man, I could never set the bar that high out in the free world. How do you do this? He says, oh, it's expected in here. It's expected. If you don't set the bar high, they won't even pay attention to you. And if you don't live it out, you're going to get beat out. So anyway, COVID comes. They locked down all the prisons, like solitary confinement, man, for a year and a half. It was hard on them. No movement, no visitation, nothing. I mean, for a year and a half. I finally show up at Darrington, kind of, I think it was like April of 21. Right at the end of COVID, might have been 20. When was COVID ending? 20?
Be 21.
21? So right at the end of COVID. So I'm in a chaplain's office, and in walks Steve Hurd. He looked like the Walking Dead. He was like so pale and so frail, yet his spirit was so alive. He was just so on fire for the kingdom. And that Saturday night, that was Wednesday, that Saturday, he began the first live training again. He restarted the residential training program inside Darrington. And there's 20-some guys in there. I showed up for it. And they're all just paying attention to that guy, just like before. And he could barely breathe, man. He's like he's got half his lungs been taken out. He's still got a hole in his side. He's like holding his lung, gasping for air, and just, trying to, with all his might, just train these guys. And they're just, all eyes is on them. They're just totally paying attention. Then that Sunday, he's a dying man. And they're taking him that Sunday night, early morning, they're taking him to the Galveston Prison Hospital. And he's on a gurney. He can't talk, but he reaches up to the guard and he's asked for, he's
pen,
kind of hand motions for some paper and writing. And on a piece of paper, he writes the last words of the No Place Left catalyst. You've been trained. You know what to do. Now go get it done.
Wow. And then he passed away. Wow. Wow.
We'll see that dude in heaven, man, with some crowns.
Well, thanks for listening. And if you're enjoying the Movements podcast, why not take a moment to let somebody know about it? This has been Steve Addison for the Movements podcast.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.